It's a simple agenda. I will provide just a quick look at Scopus AI. There are certain questions we found in our webinars that get asked by librarians and researchers. I'll cover some of those. And then I want to spend the bulk of the time having Alessandra speak. She's going to share her research and views on Gen AI in the research workflow and how she uses it in her day-to-day life. As researchers, I think her voice is much more relevant than mine. So we're going to let her really share her work and her experience. We will have a brief Q&A at the end, and we'll field the questions from Q&A as best we can with the time we have available. So real quick, Scopus AI, it's a generative AI tool. It's designed for researchers. It's really to help you navigate unfamiliar fields, accelerate your content discovery, and it really is designed for greater multidisciplinary collaboration. So, and it saves you a ton of time in doing this as well. So when we reached out and we were trying to decide how we would implement Gen AI, we found that understanding complex, swiftly changing research topics in an area that you don't know was a pain point. So we really wanted you as a researcher to be able to extend your knowledge and to move into other areas, especially with multidiscipline being so prolific these days and well-funded. So what it gives you is using natural language queries. It will give you a summary, an extended summary, a concept map, so you can sort of see the directions you can go to with your research, the foundational papers, topic experts, whether you're looking for collaboration or whether you want to dive deeper into a topic. And then we'll actually suggest queries to go deeper in certain directions. So it's a good starting place when you're going into a new topic, and it's really going to help you choose the direction you want to go in the topic. So public service announcement, this is the one question that may be popping up in chat and QA right now. It is an additional subscription. So if you have Scopus, it doesn't mean you automatically have Scopus AI. So if you are using Scopus currently, given the number of users, there's a good chance many of you are, there would be a tab that says Scopus AI. If it's not there, it just means your institution hasn't decided to move forward with it yet. And I say yet because we're having really good uptake with our institutions. They're seeing the value in it, and we keep adding value. We're adding features throughout the rest of the year. Scopus AI is not designed to replace Scopus Search. It is to give you a good starting point. Scopus, again, you're going to dive much deeper. So who can use it? Well, a lot of times we'll say early career researchers. It's obvious you're diving into your topic and you want to go deep. But what we're finding is mid and late career researchers who are doing cross-discipline, multidiscipline research, who want to dive into a new topic they may not be familiar with. It is a huge time saver in doing that. So really any researcher can benefit from it. And it's all depending on the direction your research is going in. But again, if you're diving into a new topic or you want to do multidisciplinary research, it's really powerful. So Scopus Data supports Scopus AI. So a few things about Scopus Data. I have some of the numbers up on this slide right here. I'm not going to read all of them. There's a misconception that Scopus Data is only Elsevier. It's not. We have 7,000 plus publishers, over 28,000 journals in there. 97,000 million pieces of content are in Scopus. It is an abstract and in-depth database. So one of the big questions we get is it full text? No, it is not. It is pulling from all the data we have in Scopus and the abstracts in there. So, and that is what's being used to drive to answer the query and to drive the learning module. So it's learning from that content. Initially, when it came out, it was just the past 10 years because the whole idea is you want it the most relevant. And we're extending that to 20 years because we've spoken to the community and said, no, we want to go back a little bit further. So we're moving that to 20 years. That's actually going live very soon. I don't have an exact date for you. Just a heads up, one part, and you'll see it noted there, is that we have 19 million plus author profiles. So the profiles, the author profiles and the organization profiles sort of are the glue that bring the content together and really make Scopus usable. We have a webinar coming up, and if you look, and we'll have a link later on, a slide later on in the presentation. If you're an author, whether you have Scopus or don't have Scopus, your author profile is important. People look at it. You're coming up in our database. We have a webinar coming up on the 26th. We've got 2 sessions. We've got links. If you look into the handouts, an early session and a late session. So early, great for if you're in Asia or Europe, and the late session is great for Europe or the Americas. But you can benefit from learning what a profile is, how you can change your profile, and how you can use it to promote yourself. So just a public service announcement, it's another educational webinar. We really want people to use their author profiles to help your career. Next question, what technology is used? So we are using OpenAI's large language model and ChatGPT hosted on Microsoft. We diverge from their basic model and have developed our own version of RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation Fusion. So we have taken RAG and we've upped the game. We have such a rich database that we can dive a little bit deeper. So it not only just does an easy answer like you'll get out of a ChatGPT, it will actually give you variations on the user's query. It will give you the follow-up questions, as you'll see. The vector search, and all the vector search is, all of your data is in bits and bytes. The vector search quantifies words and quantifies the associations between words. So this way, when you ask the question, it can churn through all the data and say, okay, these are the connections you want to make. So really, vector search is a simple way of saying we're looking at bits and bytes and we're quantifying them, and then we're using that quantification to give you answers. And fortunately, it appears as human language. So we basically have created something called RAG Fusion, and there's a flyer in the handout section if you want to dive a little bit more deeper. But it really gives a more nuanced approach. For example, we'll give confidence levels. So if you go into a query, it will say, it'll give you a high, medium, or low confidence level with very nuanced language. So you can look at the summary and understand sort of how we've pulled it together as well. And the last question that always comes up often is responsible use of AI. How do we responsibly implement our AI? So we've developed Scopus AI based on our responsible AI principles, as well as our privacy principles. And we have very transparent privacy principles if you go to our website. And we also have a document outlining our responsible use. We're working with the community. There's a transparency that we're providing as well. So take a look there. We had a webinar just on this topic about 3 months ago. The link is on the Elsevier Scopus page. So take a look at the flyer. But we do responsible use. We're trying to address hallucinations and bias as best we can, because both do live within the generative AI world. And luckily, we have such a strong curated database in Scopus, and it is curated by our content selection and advisory board. And we do try addressing the bias early on. And hallucinations will occur, and we've built the RAG Fusion to try addressing those hallucinations so you're not getting misled in your research. And our LLM is private. So we have an agreement with Microsoft where they don't learn from the queries within our LLM. Now, our LLM will learn from your queries, there's no doubt, because that's the whole idea of the LLM. It's one of the reasons why you probably won't see the same results if you do the same search in a day later, because data is changing and we're learning. But we don't share the data. So, and that is something we're very proud of. It stays within our ecosystem. So those are just some of the basic questions that tend to pop up quite often about Scopus AI. But the more important thing is, how do you use generative AI or Scopus AI in your day-to-day life? And I'm going to hand the slides over to Alessandra and let her share her experience.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Marita, for inviting me to participate in the webinar. Right, so I'll try sharing my experience. As Marita said, I'm a postdoctoral researcher in Universitat Pompeu Fabra, I'm based in Barcelona. I'm doing a PhD in place branding. And I had the opportunity, together with Dr. Luis Codina and Dr. Carlos Lopez-Sosa, to test the beta version of Scopus AI at the end of 2023. So while we were testing the tool, we gathered some information, and I will try and show my insights today and explain how I think this tool can assist us researchers in different moments of our daily work life. So considering that we might have diversity of people in the audience, I'll try just doing a little bit of an introduction to academic databases and research, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So the basis of scientific advancement is to make an original contribution to a field of research, right? So academic databases play a key role in this process because they host a vast amount of peer-reviewed literature, which in turn serves as the foundation for new studies. However, these tools can be challenging to navigate because their interfaces might not always be very intuitive, also because they use a specific language, and because they host the amount of research they host can be sometimes overwhelming. This means that researchers require a certain degree of information literacy to make sure they can access the documents that are actually relevant for them. So in these environments, we are used to using keywords and concepts and their synonyms to search for information based on search equations. So it's not a very natural language, we would say. Okay, just to provide a few examples, and pretending that we are early career researchers and I'm interested in place branding, for instance. The first time I access a database, an academic database, in this case Scopus, the first thing I would do would probably just type in place branding and in the search box. And the tool would retrieve almost 1,300 documents. That's a fair amount of literature. There's a lot of information there. But after scrolling down and looking at all these records, the researcher might notice that some of the documents refer to place branding with a few alterations, maybe place brand or place brands in plural. So we would do this little modification just to make sure we are accessing the whole pool of documents. Now, this time we have almost 200 documents more. But after investing a fair amount of time, the researcher realizes that there are several synonyms that other researchers use to refer to place branding, such as city branding, nation branding, county branding, destination branding. Right? How I can't miss this information, right? Because some of the research I might be interested in might be using these other synonyms. Okay, what happens if I put them in the search box? Okay, it increases even more the pool of documents I am getting back from the tool. Right. So after a really considerable amount of time, I'm talking hours, maybe days for an early career researcher, the researcher is confident enough to use a search equation and some of the filters that we can find in this database, such as the date range or the document type, the fields where we can use the keywords. The researcher is ready to undertake the research, and within a pool of documents that he or she can handle. Okay. Right. So how does GenAI assist researchers in this process? Right. We've been talking about information overload, early career researchers or researchers looking into different disciplines. This is exactly what Scopus AI does. Doug has already introduced the topic. I will show you shortly with a little demonstration, live demonstration. But I would like to just have a look at this slide so we can all understand more or less some of the main differences we can find between the traditional search system Scopus provides and the new version based on generative artificial intelligence. So, like I said, in the traditional environment or interface, we use search equations, whereas with generative AI, we are using prompts. That's basically means that we can use natural language, so just the way that we talk and we refer to other people. The results that we obtain are no longer a list of results, not only the titles or the abstracts of these documents, but an operational synthesis that we can read, a text, a structured text. This is far more human-friendly than what we were receiving in the traditional system. And it also allows us to interact, to engage a little bit more with the tool, as I'll show you in a bit. Right, so just to finish with this introduction, this would be what Scopus looks like in the traditional system. We get a list of results related to the keywords we use for our search. This is how Scopus AI looks like, a structured text, just like if we were reading the actual research. And this is Scopus AI Copilot, a better version with some improvements that I will also be talking about in a few minutes. Okay, so I'll now share my screen so you can see how Scopus AI works. Sorry, it's not this tab. Right, okay. As Doug said, Scopus AI is integrated in the usual Scopus database. It's under subscription, so if we cannot see the tab there, it means that we won't be able to use it. Right, the first thing, oops, this is my search session before. Right, the first thing we notice when we access the tab is how it works. This menu here unfolds and provides some information on how the tool works. You can even learn how we can share feedback on it. There's also 3 search examples we can use, 3 prompts, just to get used to the interface, to see how it actually works. This can be quite useful the first time we're using the tool. And finally, the search box. So in this case, I'll just use a prompt that maybe an early career researcher could use, but there's many types of prompts we can use. We can relate different concepts. We can ask for factual data. We can be very creative, right? But I'll just use something simple everyone can understand based on social sciences, so no one gets lost. So considering my first example was on place branding, and considering I'm an early career researcher using this tool for the first time, something I could ask would be, how has the field of place branding evolved over time, and what are some future directions? This can provide useful information for me to help me with my research design, to see what the state of the art is. So let's have a look. At this stage, all you need to do is just press enter or select the search button, and the tool will do everything for us in a matter of seconds. So, as I said before, we are no longer getting a list of results. Scopus AI is providing a text, an operational synthesis that's easy to read. It's always a structured text, as you can see, using bold type lists. It tends to have an introductory sentence and also a final conclusion paragraph. So in this case, I was asking about the evolution and about future directions. So we can see that the tool has divided the text in these 2 main sections. It's already giving us some insight over the last 40 years. So this is quite a rather new discipline, we could say, that's been gaining interest within academics and practitioners, that's changed from an economic perspective to include other disciplines such as policy, governance, tourism, and so on. Related to the future direction, we can read about resilience and innovation and innovative strategies. Some theoretical foundations of place branding are being rethought. So this is already giving me some information, some direction of what the discipline looks like and what I could bring to this field, right? You've probably noticed there are some numbers in the text. These numbers refer to the references the tool has used to build the summary. All these references are studies or documents, records that are indexed in the database, and we can access them either selecting the numbers or the links. This will take us to the full record, Or we can just say show all 4 references. Here we get information on the citations, we can access the whole record, we can access author profiles, source profiles, and even read the abstract. Okay. What else? Also interesting, export all references. From here, we can export the references that the tool has used into different file types and reference, or using different reference managers, which is quite handy because it makes you work in an efficient way. Everything is placed in the same interface. Okay, as Doug said, all this information comes from research published from 2003, so the last 20 years, fair enough amount of time. It's been updated, like he said, it used to be 2013, but still maybe someone is looking at the whole evolution, wants to know about other research that was published previously. This feature here can help us counteract this potential limitation. So foundational documents is providing information on influential documents that have been cited a lot. In this case, well, as you can see, most of them have received a lot of citations. There are some important names here like Andrea Lucarelli. And just like we did before, we can access the record by selecting the link. We can access the author profiles, the source profile, and read the abstract. We can also export the documents, and in this case, consult other records that will be related to these foundational papers. This one here seems quite interesting, right? Tracing the origins of place branding since 1980. This is perfect for the kind of prompt I inserted. Okay, so rethinking the place branding construct, same again. All these documents seem to be quite related to what I was asking, another literature review and a future agenda. Definitely, this would definitely be part of the documents I would save to consult earlier on. Right, so this would be the first step. We've got an initial summary, an initial list of references. We found out some foundational documents, seminal papers, but we want to learn more. Okay, what can we do? We can expand this summary. This will give us a more comprehensive overview of our research problem, of what was asked in the prompt. So usually this feature provides a longer summary. Again, always structured, using bold type, using lists, and with references to research that has been peer-reviewed and published in academic journals, indexed in the database. So in this case, what is the expanded summary telling us? It's giving us a little bit of information on the evolution. It's talking about trends and challenges. This can be interesting. It's already telling us that the influence of technology, this might be something that will become a trend in the future, emerging research areas and future directions. This looks really interesting. If the researcher is not sure how he can approach or what he or she can bring to the field, this might bring some ideas. And again, a closing paragraph summarizing everything that's been said in this expanded version. Again, everything is supported by references. We can access them by selecting the numbers or by selecting the show all 9 references. It's important that we check this because these references are not necessarily the same as the ones we saw in the previous summary. Sometimes some of them are, but usually there's new ones. So it's always interesting to check that out just in case, just to make sure we're not missing out on anything. Like in the previous examples, we can export references and we can consult profiles for authors and sources. Right. Other features the tool provides. Topic experts. This is showing influential researchers that are publishing in the domain, probably highly cited, maybe not, but that have, here we go, that have, well, gained some influence. The tool is providing a brief bio for each of these researchers, and we can access the profile, see what documents the researcher has published, and we can access the full profile just to see what other research the researcher has published. Okay, the concept map. Doug also introduced this. This is quite interesting. So far we've seen information in shape of a text. The concept map is a visual tool that's providing information on keywords, concepts, how they're related to each other in the form of a diagram. But the good thing about this, and this is also an upgrade compared to the beta version we tested, is that this is now interactive. So all the nodes carry information. So say I'm interested in the state of the art, I can select that node, and Scopus AI will now provide another summary on this topic, again, supported by references that can provide me extra information on this specific domain of the keywords that form part of the extended summary and the initial summary. This will happen with each of the nodes that are part of the diagram. So in case the researcher is interested in one of these specific domains, that this can be a door not to deepen in that specific subject within the topic. So that's interesting. Here we had a co-branding process. Yeah, a lot of this is actually quite interesting. I also want to point out at this, unfortunately, none of the abstracts directly address the dynamics of place branding. This is good because it means that at least not from a very, would say, important approach or core, in a core way, it's not being addressed in the abstracts. This might mean there might be a research gap there. We need to validate this. Obviously, we need to consult this document. We need to read the research. We need to make sure there is a gap there. But it's interesting. With the other system, with the traditional system, sometimes we would simply not get results, or we would get some results, but it's more difficult to determine if there's a gap or not. You also need to do some work here, but let's say that the tool is speeding up this process for us by telling us that it hasn't found this in the abstract. So if it's not in the abstracts, it might be an indicator that it's not has not been covered from a full perspective, let's say. Right, so this would cover an initial session. Okay, so we have an initial summary with a list of references and foundational papers. We've asked for an expanded version of this. We've also seen a concept map, and we've learned who the topic experts are. The next step here can be, we can either select one of the follow-up questions that the tool is providing us, or I can go back to the search box and just insert a new prompt. I probably learned some information, and maybe I want to change the way I put my words into this prompt just because I've been reading all this information and checking all these documents. So I'll just select one of the follow-up questions just to show how this would work. So if I just select the first one, this would restart the process again. We would get a new initial summary, this time for this prompt, the follow-up question, a new list of references, a new list of foundational documents, all this related to the new prompt. And again, an expanded summary, a concept map, topic experts, and so. So this process is iterative. We would continue this until we decide we have enough information, okay? I would now like to show another feature, the Copilot. I'll use a completely different prompt here. Since place branding is also about destination branding, we've had some troubles in Barcelona with tourism. There's been some protests because we're getting a lot of tourism, and there's been some collateral effects, let's say. So what does Copilot do for us? This is a really cool tool. This means now, as researchers, we can insert a prompt in our preferred language, and the tool will automatically translate it and provide the same information as I showed you earlier on. So I'll use a prompt on tourism in Catalan, which is my native language. Right, don't worry if you don't speak Catalan, because the tool should explain everything for us. Right. Oops, it's taking a little bit. There we go. Right. So the first thing we notice, obviously, I've used Catalan. That's really good for me. I'm not a native English speaker. So this is making research a little bit more inclusive, right? We can use our language. Sometimes we can be kind of fluent in English. We write in English, but obviously there's nuances, and sometimes we can express ourselves better in our own languages. Right. So my query was, what are the problems caused by tourism in Barcelona? Another interesting fact is that sometimes when Copilot uses keywords to find the answer, it doesn't always require this, but when it does, it will show the search equation. And this is really, really interesting because we can learn keywords, other synonyms that when using the traditional system can be useful for us. So again, I just wanted to show this. The system would be exactly the same as before. We would get exactly the same information, a summary, a list of references, and so on. I also want to point out that if we make any mistakes, if there are any typos with Copilot, or if we use acronyms, the system is also able to understand what we were trying to say. So this is it's a positive improvement, I believe, compared to the traditional system. Okay, so I'll end my demo here, and I'll finish with a few slides to conclude my presentation. Right. Okay. Right, so someone might ask, what results can I get? What are the results? What are the outcomes after using Scopus AI? Well, first, we can generate a list of potential references that we can use for our research. Depending on how we engage with the tool, this list will be longer, shorter, but we can get a pool of documents that can be interesting for us. We can also build a concept map of all the different keywords, all the different concept maps that the tool provided for us. So we have an overview of the domain that we were interested in, and we can also generate a recast of the summaries that Scopus AI provided for us. That's not copying, but reading the research and then building on what was shown to us initially. Right, so as we saw, Scopus AI is based on a synthesis structure. We get this text, these summaries that can be expanded by iteration until we decide we have received an optimal answer, or until we're not getting any new information. So we've reached a saturation point. It provides global synthesis of a given area or the intersection of concepts or variables. I haven't shown this much here. Well, I've used the first example of explain how it has evolved and what are the future directions, but we could use other prompts like how can place branding promote sustainable development, things like that. We can be very creative and explore our interests. So after using the tool, after gathering all the information, we concluded that we think that this really accelerates the process of conducting research, because it generates focused synthesis using natural language, and one of the most important things is that it does really reduce the time invested both in researching and evaluating the results. Some of the benefits and limitations, I've already been explaining this, but just to summarize. Benefits. We get a useful overview of a research problem. We are able to identify keywords and relationships, foundational papers, influential authors, and we can locate and export references from Scopus AI. We can get operational synthesis that can be valuable for our literature reviews and theoretical frameworks. We can ask questions, queries, information needs in natural language and in our own language with Copilot. And most importantly, all these summaries generated by Scopus AI are based on quality and previously validated research, right? Some of the limitations, I wanted to stress this because before, one of the limitations we found when we published our research paper was the time span. But obviously this has literally recently, only this week, I think, been expanded to 2003. So I think that's really, really good. The concept map is only coming for every set of summary and expanded summary. I'm not sure if having a concept map for each summary would add more information, but it's true that with the new interactive system with the nodes and you being able to interact with the different nodes of the diagram, I think that kind of counteracts this possible limitation. I think it would be interesting if it was possible to save searches, although in the meantime, we can always go back to the traditional system and create some search alerts. And then lastly, some of the arguments, it's difficult to identify which arguments are most important. The tool doesn't do that for us. Maybe it's not intended to do that for us. We basically need to read the research and find out. And then again, language, natural language is a positive thing, but at the same time, it can be a limitation because it can oversimplify some concepts. So we need to be careful with that. All in all, I think we now have 3 different scenarios when we're searching in Scopus. We can use a traditional system, like Doug said. This Scopus AI is not meant to replace it. I think it's an add-on. It's something that can speed up our process. But depending on our research problem, on our research project, we might need to use only the traditional system, only Scopus AI, or combine both of them. Okay, so I think it's good that we keep that in mind. Right, reaching the end. How can we integrate Scopus AI in our research workflows? Right. This was one of the conclusions of our research article. We thought, okay, how can we show what we've learned? And we came up with the idea of building this diagram that matches Scopus AI features with the research needs. So basically, with one of the Scopus AI features, we can meet one or more research needs and the other way around. So for instance, if we want to locate relevant literature, we can do that by using the features foundational papers, list of references, or topic experts. If we're interested in identifying seminal studies, we can go again to topic expert, foundational papers, and so on. I won't extend myself here. You can read this if you're interested. It will be in the handout section. You can have a look at that. And I would like to end up showing a diagram Dr. Luis Codina came up with to help us evaluate generative artificial intelligence, not only Scopus AI, but all of them in general, because we're starting to use all these kind of tools, but sometimes how can you assess if they're actually working for us or not? So again, you will be able to access this through the link, although it's in Spanish, it will be very easy to translate. But yeah, considering the narrative synthesis, we would be looking at structure. Is the text structure, does it come in paragraphs? Is there a connection between the paragraphs? Is there a conclusion paragraph summarizing the text? How extensive is the text? We would say the more extensive, probably the better, more information we're getting. And also multimodality. Is the tool providing other resources? In this case, we can say yes, Scopus AI is providing other forms of information via, for example, the concept map diagram. Sources. We would be looking at the amount and diversity of these sources, if they're integrated in the text, if they appear next to each sentence, and their format. Is it easy to use this? Sources, can we export them? Can we use them directly? Are the links next to the sources? Suggested prompts, are they adequate to our search objectives? Are they opening new approaches that we didn't consider, that were not included in our initial prompts? And IDEA functions, other features, in this case, such as topic expert, foundational papers, or expanded summary. And this is my last slide. I would like to end up with some ethical considerations. It is important to be transparent when we use these tools. The same way when we read research, we can find a Scopus cited in the methodology section saying, okay, we undertook a rapid review or literature review using Scopus database. We can also do that with Scopus AI and say it is not a problem, we're not cheating. So it's okay, we can say that. Regarding traceability, this is actually quite important. Research is all about, some people would like to replicate our study. It's important that we allow our other researchers to do that. So my advice would be either copy the information provided by the tool. You can do that directly from Scopus AI, or you can take screenshots. This will help prove the path you've taken to reach your results, and like I said, will help other researchers conduct similar research. Verification, although everything provided by the tool has been previously validated and has been peer-reviewed, it's important to check the data and the sources. We still need to read the research. We are not copying what Scopus AI is giving to us. This is just accelerating our research process, but we still need to check and verify everything that we are reading. And finally, attribution. Everything, all the information provided in the summary comes from research that has already been published. So these ideas belong to other people, other researchers. When we are referring to this information, we need to cite the authors, and we need to make sure that the attribution of this information is given to the people it belongs to. So I'll end up my presentation here. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for attending the webinar. You can access the report and the research paper on the handouts in case you're interested in learning a little bit more of Scopus AI, and I will now hand over to Doug.
Thank you so much, Ellie. It's so powerful having someone who is using this tool talk about it. You can read everything you want on a piece of marketing literature, but it's so, for us in the team, to see somebody using the tool and getting benefit out of it, it's why we do what we do. So thank you so much for sharing. Again, just a public service announcement. As an author, as a researcher, your Scopus profile, you can access it, and you can correct it, and you can use it whether you use Scopus, have access to it or not. So take a look at the two sessions, and we hope that can inform you as well and educate you as a researcher. And with that said, we're going to hop into some of the Q&As. Some I may answer, and some Ellie may answer. We'll try getting through those in the next 12 minutes. So this question came up a few times. What are the benefits of Scopus, Gen AI versus ChatGPT? It comes down to data. Okay, ChatGPT is an engine, a generative engine that you can educate to search on data. So your school could go get ChatGPT EDU, and they would be getting a platform for you to develop LLMs, language learning modules. I think I'm saying that, models. The difference is that we have taken that based on the Microsoft implementation. We're using the Scopus data. So we're automatically informing it with what we believe is the most comprehensive STEM research data in the world as abstracts. And then we've taken it to the next level by building our engine, our RAG Fusion, using RAG and our RAG Fusion version of that, so that it dives deeper and provides what Alessandra had provided to you. So it doesn't just give you an answer. It gives you an answer. It gives you context. It gives you sources. So it really is the fact that this is a vertical solution for researchers to embark on a new research journey, as opposed to a just general platform that either is built. And listen, I use ChatGPT, in my personal life for planning trips and everything else. It accesses every data on the internet. We know the Scopus data is solid because we have checks and balances of how we put the data in there. We know the accuracy is about 98% on the data. So that really is the big difference. This is designed specifically for a vertical use case. These next to Alessandra, I think, are in your court. I'm gonna ask the both of them together because I think they're sort of linked. Someone asked, if I use Scopus AI in my search, should I acknowledge it at the end of the manuscript? And the other question was, is the use of Gen AI, even for Scopus AI, considered plagiarism? So I think you've covered a little bit, but maybe clarify your point on that.
I think for the first question, it depends. It depends on your research. If you're conducting a literature review, for instance, then I would definitely state it. It's true that when you read research, some researchers in their study say the first step of my research was conducting a literature review. For so, I used this search equation in the database, so and so. I wouldn't say it's compulsory, but if you want to be transparent, then why not? You can just mention it. But I would say, depending, if you're doing a literature review, I would say 100% for sure. You need to say which search equation you used, when you undertook the search. I would take screenshot just in case. I did one myself, and that's how I did it. It does provide you a reassurance that if you did something wrong or someone comes back to you asking information, you know exactly how you did your research, and you have a record of step-by-step everything you did. And regarding the second question, I would say, well, we're still missing, or we're still lacking some law on this. No, the European Union has started working on this. There are some academic journals that state specifically some directions regarding Gen AI, but I think it depends on the way you use it. That is, if you are copying what Scopus AI is providing and you are using it as if it's your own research, then yes, that is plagiarism. If you are using generative artificial intelligence to speed up your research process, but you're giving credit to the other researchers, then for me, that's not plagiarism. We're just using. This is the future. I think in a few years, this will no longer be a debate, right? When we didn't have internet, maybe we were also scared of using the World Wide Web, but this is going to be the way we do research, I believe. It's just a way of accelerating tasks that can take a lot of time for humans to do, right? But we still need to read the research. I would say for me, it's a very valuable tool. And what I do is that if there's some ideas in there, in the summaries, in the research papers that I really like and I think are useful for me, I just do exactly the same I used to do before Scopus AI came to the market, which is cite the author, cite the work in the text and in my list of references, so they get the citation. And I think that's what we need to do, just to make sure give credit to the people.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah, Scopus AI, it's good on creating a map for how you're going to do your research. There's another question I answered, and I probably should have pulled in, and someone says, well, can it be used in systematic reviews? Certainly, because it is a good starting place for going into a new research area, and then hop into Scopus itself for the systematic review, because you can get all that breadth of data, all that breadth of articles on your topic. And then Scopus lets you actually export that into a reference manager, so you can do a really good systematic review. Any librarians on the call, I know you're integral in systematic reviews. It's a good starting place. It's a good educational tool. Our customer success managers who are out in the field helping researchers at institutions will come out and say, do not cut and paste. It's not the intent. It is to inform and to educate you. So so that's sort of our stance there. But we do know that the use of Gen AI throughout the research workflow is causing issues in the publishing industry. Almost every journal is significantly up in papers that are being submitted by paper mills. And certainly we do not support paper mills as a publisher or as a technology and analytics company. Integrity is your integrity, and I trust all the researchers on this call will use their integrity there too. This question comes up a lot. How does Scopus AI deal with biases? There is no silver bullet for bias in generative AI. I'm stating that openly. We have stated that at almost every one of our webinars. We do really try working on bias on the data that goes into Scopus, and that's with the content selection board, how we put the data in there as well. But realize that there is a human element into the Scopus AI via the product team as well. This is not all machine learning. They do go look at queries. They do get alerts on queries that are indicated, like flagged as being like, oh, that was a bad query. So someone coming out and saying, I only want to know emphysema research from male, researchers. No, we will not answer that question. And we actually will monitor it, and we try teaching the learning module sort of some of those potholes as well. So there is human intervention as the model is learning. We are continuing to develop the model and make it better. So we do try limiting bias by the use of our Reg Fusion, by the use of that monitoring. And we do try limiting it. If I was to sit here and say that we're going to get rid of all of the bias in Scopus AI, I would be lying. And anybody who is offering you an AI solution would be fibbing, as my mom used to say. So it really is something that we're going to continue to struggle with, as with hallucinations, because it is a predictive model. Okay. Fortunately, we have such strong data, our hallucinations are a lot less. And this one I found interesting. What is the failure rate for Scopus AI? And the answer is you will always get an answer. Okay, there is no, it will never say, I can't answer that question. The problem comes if you choose a topic where there's not a lot of research. The LLM has to have data to feed off of. So if you said, I want to know, why left-handed dentists in Cleveland, Ohio are getting emphysema, there's no research on that. Well, I hope there's no research on that. I'd be very embarrassed if one of you looked it up and there is actually an article on left-handed dentists in Cleveland. But what will happen is when that summary comes up, it will state that there was limited data and we couldn't come up with an answer. So it really comes down to how you're pushing topics. And we're actually exploring something called emerging trends within Scopus AI to identify those areas, because guess what? If there's not a lot of research in a specific area, that might be a good area to research in. So keep your eyes open for that as well. But it really comes down to, and there's been some articles out there where I think there's a Scholarly Kitchen article where someone had a very, very, very specific niche type of research, and they did it, and they were very much deriding Scopus AI. And our team said, you're right, because we don't have the data to give as broad a summary as we like. But if you go to an area where we have rich data, and the majority of areas we have rich data, it can sort through, save you hours upon hours of time and give you that summary, and it is a strong summary. So not failure per se, I think as Ilya asked that, but we do give you the confidence level, and there's different wording for low, medium, and high confidence, so that when you're looking at the summary, you have context. You can say, hey, is this good? Is this bad? Should I dive deeper into Scopus? Maybe I need to reword my query. Maybe I need one of the go deeper summaries in there as well. So no failure per se, but as with any AI, you have to learn how to interpret the results as well. And let me just see if there's anything new that's in there. I did have, and again, we've been open that Scopus AI is an additional subscription on top of Scopus. Somebody asked what the price is. That all depends. There's so many different factors, from number of FTE to what your Scopus subscription is to, there's a million different factors. So if you're interested, you could, reach out to us via the email on this webinar, and we can get you in touch with your sales team member, and they can go through that with you as well. I think a lot of these we've hit already. Right now, Yash, there are no individual subscriptions available. Unfortunately, it is tied into Scopus because you need that data behind you. We do not offer individual Scopus subscriptions at the time. And I think a lot of these are subscriptions. We've had quite a large uptake. So there's a good chance your institution has it or is looking at it right now. People are seeing value in it, and researchers are benefiting from it, and that's what we want. We want you to use this and do great in your research. So that is it. Time is up. Thank you, everybody, for coming in.